Hello everyone, how's it going? Again, we're continuing this video. Going to be speaking or continuing on what we were talking about. Last we spoke on carriers, carrier development, like developing relationships with your carriers. And again, this is the area where you probably want to start off with a little bit. Again, to ensure that you have carriers in certain lanes that you may be interested in running. Again, if you're dealing with calling shippers first, you may have a target range of the kind of lanes that they're running, so you can have some kind of idea of where you should be looking for carriers in, and that works too. There's just reason why I say definitely don't slack on the carriers is the fact that you don't necessarily want lanes thrown at you, like, oh yeah, help me out with this lane, but yet you're not quite ready and don't have any type of relationship developed with any carriers yet. Again, you can get a load and just instantly throw it on the load board and you can find somebody for it. But what I'm saying is the likelihood comes down quite a bit in the sense that as being when you're a new broker, if you're an agent, it's a little bit different because based off of the strength of the brokerage that you're running with, that will play a large factor on what's going to happen. But as a new broker yourself, what you need to understand is your credit rating is going to be low. We spoke about that a little bit. Meaning when your load gets posted on that load board, it's going to have a standing next to it in terms of your credit rating, and your credit rating is going to be low or non-existent. Therefore, there's going to be more risk in terms of your carrier's factoring company, in terms of if they're going to want to deal with you or not. So, with that being said, it's going to make it quite a little bit more difficult for them to want to necessarily deal with you. Again, unless a couple of circumstances, such as the loads that you're giving them, the rate is substantially higher than everything else that's around there. Or what also can work in your favor is if the area that you have this load in, if those are areas like such as, let's say, reefer load up in Boston, Massachusetts, something of that nature, or places that are really scarce in terms of loads, that may will work to your benefit in the sense that there aren't many options and they'll be more willing to run something from you just so they can get out of that area, especially if everything is paying low and you're paying a little bit better, or even if you're paying fairly average, just the fact that it's one more load compared to, again, there might be 200 trucks there, but there might be 20 loads. Your one load will add compared to if there was, if there were 19 loads. It's just one more there that, oh, yes, I could look at this and maybe I can get out and go into a better area. So those are the kind of things that you got to keep in mind. But developing carrier relationships is something that you definitely want to be doing. I'm going to do a little bit more screen sharing here. Okay. So, what we're going to be talking about here, we already spoke on your carrier development and what a trucking company is, what a carrier is. Again, remember, make sure that these guys are running properly, meaning everything legit. They have their MC number. It's still active. $1 million general liability, 100,000 on the cargo. It's going to be one of these kind of types: dry van, reefer, flatbed, step deck, or some other type, such as if you're doing heavy haul, movable gooseneck, drayage coming out of the ports, hot shot, box truck. The box truck and the hot shots, where this is going to come into play is you learning about this here, the different types of loads. There are going to be two main types of loads. You're going to have what's called a full truckload, or what they would just say a TL truckload. This is going to be a load that is going to fill up majority of the trailer. In other words, if you have a 53-foot trailer, this is going to take up maybe 60, 70% of it. A 53-foot trailer, if you're using standard pallets, the standard 48 by 48s, it's going to fill up with 20 pallets. That's how much it's going to take for a full truck. But at the same time, even if you had 16 pallets in there, there's space for four more. It is still going to be considered a full truckload just for the amount of volume that it's taking up because it's taking up more than 50%, taking up about 60, 70%. So you want to keep that in mind. When you're dealing with these different shippers, you want to find out what kind of loads are they in need of assistance to haul. Meaning, are they looking for straight just full truckloads or are they dealing with LTL? LTL less than truckloads. This is loads taking up about 50% or less of the total space. In other words, the same thing, it might be a 53-foot, but if it's only taking up maybe 3, 4 pallets, that's not a full truckload. That is a LTL, less than truckload, meaning that trailer is only taking up 20, 30% of the space. That same carrier may go and haul and another load with that same load that you tended to them. It might put another 3, 4 pallets on there, or it could be another 10 pallets just to fill up the space that's in the trailer, and subsequently increasing the value in terms of what they're making. Because this load here, it's full truckloads, and these LTL loads do not pay the same. Reason why? Because this takes up less space. It does not pay the same as this full truckload. I'm going to give you guys an example real quick. And the thing you need to remember too, these things are priced differently. An LTL load isn't going to be priced the same as a full truckload. And it's just certain key things you just need to understand. One, let's say a flatbed, for example, standard 48-foot flatbed. A 48-foot flatbed, it can haul about 48,000 pounds. So, but what if there's a load that they're picking up that is only taking up 10 feet of space? Again, that's less than 50 feet, less than 50%, excuse me. So it's taking up 10 feet of space. But if it's weighing 45,000 pounds, that's still considered a full truck. They're not going to, because the standard, the way the weight has to be distributed throughout the trailer, they're not going to necessarily put it right on the tail, like on the tail, on the back end of it, or towards the front. They'll mainly have it towards the middle to distribute the weight evenly throughout the trailer. But with that kind of weight, that that truck isn't going to put anything else on there. So that might be less in length, but in terms of weight, that's still considered a full truck. Likewise, you may have a 53-foot and it might have uh, you might have a 53-foot that's taking up 50 feet of space, but likewise, the weight on that may be 10,000 pounds. But nonetheless, it's still a full truckload because the volume of it is taking up the entire truck. So these are the kind of things you got to keep in mind. In terms of how to price them, let me just share a couple things with you guys. Everybody does different kind of ways of pricing them. This is how I do mine. Just to give it to you guys here. Okay. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Okay. We're here on this load board here, DAT. I'm going to give you an example of how you would want to price something. So let's say you're speaking with a customer, right? And the customer tells you, "Oh yeah, man, I got this load coming up here from, let's say, Atlanta." This is a great tools that you have on these different load boards. Right here, you have this section called tools. As you see, you got dashboard, post load. This is for when you're posting. Right here, search your trucks, search loads, alarms. You would go to search. Well, first you want to use your tools right here, and you want to say quick rate lookup. This is going to give you a bit of an estimate of certain lanes, how much something's been paying within a certain amount of time, to give you a ballpark understanding of what this is mainly on a truck. It will tell them roughly what they should be getting paid, and you, as the broker, you can assess from that rate of how much you should be bringing to your shipper and how much you should be potentially paying the truck. So let's just leave it at dry van. Let's say from, well, let's say from Atlanta, Georgia, going to, I don't know, let's say Philly. Uh, and press search, wait for it. There. So you see this is about 758 miles. And the average for like the last 90 days, they have 15-day average, they have 90-day average. During that 90, you see it's been about 286 a mile, which really isn't bad at all, especially for dry van. Um, Generally speaking, around this time, the rates are usually a lot lower, but with COVID, this year has been very, very weird kind of year. Things have still been up and down the last couple months, and it's actually been in the carrier's favor where things have been pretty steady on the upside, even for dry van. But it's starting to take a steady decline right now, but for the most part, it's still doing all right. But again, so you see here, 286 a mile, so paying about $2,100 on the. That's what the average has been, and the highs and lows has been anywhere from 1,900, almost $2,000 on the low, to 2,300. So anywhere from 259 to $3.05 a mile. So with something like this, as a broker, what you would want to do is take something like this. You could potentially reach out to different carriers, your carriers that you're building a network with, some of them that might run this kind of lane or don't mind running this kind of lane, and you can get a ballpark understanding of roughly something they may want to get paid for this from the highs and lows, and you can use that to go to your shipper and give some kind of understanding of how much you potentially can charge them. So for example, what I would do is I'll look at the highest. And again, this is going to be based off of what kind of relationships you have, again, with your shippers as well as your carriers, because you'll know how much you can budge. Something like this, by 23 being the high, you can potentially go as much as 25, maybe even 26, depending on the shipper, depending on the commodity. But I probably would go with like 2,500 to them, or maybe it's better to bid higher and looking for them to come down than to start lower and you can't go higher anymore. So I would go to probably even 26, and they might drop it to, they might say 23 or 24, or they might even say 22. Then if I can budge and get somewhere around this number right here, 23, 24, then I know that I could definitely easily pay my carrier 21 or 22 and still make 100, $150 on it. And that's the way you kind of want to go about it. Again, this is going to vary from person to person, brokerage to brokerage. You're going to be the one to depend on or determine the margin that you want to make. Do you want to make a certain percentage, or do you just want to make a dollar amount? Because you could be looking to say, oh, I want to make 15% per gross. So in other words, if something's $1,000, you're looking to be paid $150 profit for that $1,000 load. Likewise, if it's, let's say, $4,000 at 15%, you're looking to make $150 for every thousand. So that would be $600 for something 4,000. So 4,000, if your standard is going to be a 15% margin, that means you're going to be looking to give that load to a carrier for 4,400. So you need to understand that if you get it for 4,000, yeah, if you need to understand, not 4,400, excuse me. That means you're going to be looking to give it to that carrier for 3,400. So therefore, you need to understand your negotiation tactics must be very good in the sense that something like that you would have to be starting off the bid at to a carrier. You would have to be giving it to them somewhere around maybe, let's say, 31, and having them seemingly want to bid up, and you can go up to 34 to where they feel that they came up, but really they just came up to the exact number that you wanted. Again, it's not always going to go that way. It's not going to be that simple. You're not always going to be making the target of what you're looking for, especially in percentage. Again, you can not necessarily do percentage, and you can just be doing a dollar amount. You might just want to make $100 off of every load. So it might be $4,000 and you gave it to somebody for 39 and made $100 off of it. But if in general, from all loads throughout the day, you did 5 loads or 10 loads, or even we'll just say 5, whether it went from that one load that was 4,000 that you gave to 39, another load that was 1,000 that you gave for 9, another load that was 2,000 that you gave for 1,900. Throughout the day, if you do that with just that standard, you could have made $500 net profit compared to always trying to necessarily make a certain percentage on every single load. Because it's not always going to work that way. It's not always going to be in your favor that way, especially when you're new and you're just starting off. There's certain key things that you have to learn to do, and that's going to take time and understanding. Guys, this game right here isn't a get rich quick scheme by far. Now, I'm not going to tell you there aren't guys who have came in their first year and have done extremely well. You can do $1 million in sales, but remember what the key word I just said is $1 million in sales. Sales and net is two different things. Just because you do $1 million in sales, if you really think about it, even at that same percentage margin that I said, if you want to make 15% margin for every load that you tender, if you do $1 million in sales, you've only netted $150,000, which you need to understand. We spoke on this a little bit in terms of numbers in the beginning. That would be a very good, phenomenal year for a first year. That's not bad at all. But are things always going to work that way? Not necessarily. Some are going to do a million. Most of you in the very beginning, you probably won't do a million in sales. But a ballpark number, um, again, an average of how much people should be making, that's going to vary on a variety of things. A lot of it based off of your experience and how much work you're actually putting in. But what you should do is set yourself up for certain steady type of inclines in terms of progress, meaning small goals at a time. Try not to compare yourself to others because you'll notice there'll be a lot of people who'll be raving and ranting how they're doing so well when in reality you don't know what they're doing. You're not involved in their business. You don't know what their lifestyle is like. You don't know what their cost of living is like. So you can't always compare what others are doing to what you're doing. You need to focus on what you're doing to make your business thrive. If you're turning a profit and you're not in the red, you're doing good. You should pat yourself on the back. Again, this is going to be something that's going to be slow and steady, wins the race. So that's how you want to try to treat this. Give yourself small goals. Should be within a certain amount of time, you're looking to get X amount of carriers. In a certain amount of time, you're looking to at least land your first customer where you're dedicatedly doing business with them within a certain amount of time you're looking to have finally moved your first load. Small drops make an ocean. Don't forget that. But again, so with this example that I'm giving, again, this load right here, anywhere from $2,100, maybe $23, 2,300, 21 to 2,300. If it was going to be an LTL load,